Welcome to the Leaders Board, where the Love & Company teams shares C-suite level insights on the senior living field with others in the senior living field. For those that don't know me, my name's Rob Love, and I am the president and owner of Love & Company. Love & Company is a marketing, advertising, research, sales management firm that specializes solely in the senior living field. And with me today, I have the honor of interviewing Mike Kivov and Toby Shea of SK Advisors. So, we're seeing, and I'm sure lots of our viewers are seeing, that this is a very exciting time in the senior living field. Sometimes it feels like all of our clients are going through some facet of strategic planning or master planning, looking to prepare for the future, reinvent themselves. Now, I understand that within SK Advisors, you've come up with a new process, a new way of approaching the strategic planning process that you're calling informing. Can you tell us a little bit more about what informing is?
Sure. I think the pivotal question we hear everyone asking is, how do we set ourselves up for the future to be successful? Whatever that definition of success is for the client, right? And one thing we learn is that each of our clients has different definitions of success, and we can't just assume it's what SK, Mike, and Toby think of as being success. But that basic question driving it all is, what do we need to do in the future? What do we need to look like? What does that future state look like so that we're successful? And then how do we get there? How do we actually execute that? So we've developed an iterative process that involves steps of walking an organization through that very beginning of where do we start? What's our vision? How do we shape this to understanding more about the opportunities, the financial realities, in terms of financial feasibility, and then also capital realities.
So your process is designed to be sure people go through the right steps in the right order to get that end result. I think it would be really helpful for the viewers. Can you walk through those steps? What do you do first, second, third, fourth? What does that end product look like, as you execute the informing process?
Sure. It's intentionally designed to be a multi-step process with a series of feedback loops back to the client before we make the decision to go to a next step. And what that does is it keeps control with the client in terms of the process and the project, but also the costs. If, for example, we go through and we find that, the market isn't there to do a particular thing, we've got a stopping point that says, okay, let's stop, and there's an exit ramp, because there's no sense in continuing to go down that path. And so instead of a larger engagement where they've spent a lot of time, money, and effort, there's a value relationship there.
Is there a typical starting point? Like you mentioned the off-ramp, so you typically do something first and then get a go, no-go.
Sure, right.
And then something second, and then get a no-go. Can you walk through what that might look like?
Sure. Again, it's a multi-step process that really starts with what we had alluded to earlier, which is a visioning exercise. And very intentional when we talk with our clients and prospective clients that we're not trying to recreate the entirety if they've already gone through a strategic plan or whatever. If they need to go through that, we can help guide them through that. However, we're really trying to get at what is the vision, what are the goals, what are the key objectives of the organization, what do they want to be when they grow up.
So
right. We talked a little bit about how we don't want to define success for an organization. We want an individual organization to define for us what its success is going to be, and that's kind of our guiding light as we move forward. We have that in mind.
And then step two is in your
exploring the market. Yeah, absolutely. Very early on, we want to understand what are the opportunities, and it's different for each organization, right? Some are looking to expand, some are looking to add new services, some are looking to retrench, reposition for the future. So some of the questions are a little bit different, but ultimately we want to understand what's out there as an opportunity that they can do, or what do they need to be doing differently to be better positioned for the future. And we've worked on both these kind of engagements together, Rob, where sometimes the question is, I've got a problem, what do I need to correct? And sometimes the question is, we want to grow for certain reasons, and what can we grow? What do we do to get there?
So you might characterize step two a bit as research, maybe looking at what people in the market are looking for, looking at an organization and a competition kind of really is a data gathering phase.
Can I jump in there?
Sure,
Because
please.
as a former client and the part of the impetus, what we do, and in particular what Mike's expertise is, and then added with some different perspectives from, and that's what really makes it work, is the different perspectives. But it's to steal your thunder a little bit, it's the market positioning. So it's not market, it is research, but it's market positioning.
There's no doubt there's a fundamental element to this of just understanding the market dynamics. What are the demographics saying? What is your competition? What are they doing? How do you reconcile supply and demand? How does it all relate? But we've tried to intentionally focus on not just giving people data, but really interpreting it. So what does this all mean for you as an organization? As we think about how you need to be positioned to be successful, what does this tell us we need to do? So it's absolutely, there's a data research element to it, but the most important step is then taking that and interpreting what it means for an organization and how they need to react.
So what comes next?
Then after that, you're taking the market positioning. What are the opportunities in the market, and developing the program and the pricing, and really, to be flip about it, the revenue. You're developing the revenue, and then you're taking that and you're starting to work it through the financial feasibility. So based on the revenue, and we're very, cognizant of, the revenue, that's Mike's bailiwick, and, running the financial feasibility is different, so that we never are trying to make a project work. And so very intentional in that regard. And so you're running the financial feasibility study to see if it's feasible from an operating perspective.
The revenue really is the key driver of that, so that's why I was deferring to the money guy over here, the capital guy. But just to give a little bit more definition to what we're doing for people that might not necessarily think about it in those terms, is we're taking what we've learned about the opportunity in the market and what looks like a good direction, and then we're bringing it to life. We're painting a picture. So what does that actually look like? You said there's an opportunity to expand independent living. Okay, we're going to put the meat on the bones about what does a program look like, the unit mix, the pricing, how you're going to position it in the marketplace, programming, things of that nature. So we really bring to life what this might look like. We can paint a really clear picture of what it might look like.
What we layer on at the near the end of this first informing phase is a capital markets perspective. So what we've come up with, will it meet the threshold of what the capital markets, be it on the tax exempt nonprofit side, fixed rate bonds or bank financing, what have you, or some alternative type of financing arrangement, will it meet those metrics, so that when we come out of it we say, okay, not only do we have something we think will resonate with the market that has operating feasibility, but also is a strategy that we believe to be financeable. And then the last step in the process is what we refer to as transitioning to planning, which is the next step in the overall master planning process. And I don't know if you want to.
Sure.
That quick.
Yeah, I think to boil it down, it's getting an organization ready to transition, building the team. So what expertise are we missing? What needs to be brought to the table in order for us to move into that formal planning phase? Is it input on architecture? Is it input on sales and marketing? Something you might know about, right? Is it operational expertise, et cetera? It's building out the rest of that team so you're positioned to move forward. And then there's a second piece of that we refer to as building the roadmap. Putting together the pathway, the map of how do you move forward, what are the key steps, what are the milestones, what are the challenges or questions that are going to need to be asked and answered in order for you to progress. And I think we were remiss in stating this probably early on, but we look at informing as that foundation for the big steps of planning and then execution. If someone's going to actually wind up with a project or complete a master plan, informing is, we're biased. We kind of think that's the most important part. You got to get that right. It's like the foundation for the house. But it's also, in time reality, it's the shortest part. It's probably a multi-month process, maybe 4, 5, 6 months, depending on the organization, how quickly it's able to interpret data, absorb data, come back with responses. Because remember, this is going to involve a board in a lot of cases, or other stakeholders, and that takes some time. And then planning and execution, that can be years. So those are actually much longer, in some ways more complicated processes, but the informing is all about getting ready, teeing up to move forward with confidence into planning and then into execution.
All right, great. So I think this makes a lot of sense. It's pretty exciting. I think if our viewers out there, we'll probably have a number of people with, looking at maybe major strategic repositioning of their campus. Others might be, totally landlocked with little opportunities. Can you talk a little bit more about and help our viewers understand, in what scenarios is this process, does it make most sense to engage? And are there certain kinds of scenarios where it's maybe not as appropriate to think about?
Well, that's a great question. One thing I would say is we have the opportunity in this industry to work with organizations that are coming from positions of strength, and we have the opportunity to work with those that unfortunately are not. There's a challenge, and maybe it's a stressed or even distressed asset situation. Either of those certainly can apply to informing, because we're still getting at that fundamental question of what do we need to look like in the future and how do we get there. I would say what stands out to me is where it makes the most sense is when some of those answers aren't as readily apparent. Organizations where we know explicitly what we want to do. We spent a lot of time on this, and we're going to build a 40-unit cottage expansion because that's exactly what this organization wants and needs, and we're ready to move forward. I don't think there's as much value add from our process, to be perfectly honest. But if the questions are a little bit more complex, if organizations are not quite sure what the right pathway is, or what the services or products that might fit and might make the most sense, that's where I think the most value add comes from our informing process.
With the one add-on there that I'd make, which is, some folks may be thinking about, a 40-unit cottage expansion, for example, but they're looking, that's their thought, but they're looking for someone like us to come in and help them, and as well as to say that may, there's other opportunities. That's their current thinking, but what are we missing?
Great. Well, I would like to thank our guests today again, Mike Keevoff and Toby Shea of SK Advisors, for coming and sharing some exciting things you're doing with what you're calling informing and kind of disrupting a little bit of the planning process for senior living. I'd like to thank all of our viewers for joining us for this edition of the Leaderboard. Invite you to check back regularly for other topics and things that we'll have be able to post as we go forward. And so again, this is Rob Love of Love & Company signing off and saying thank you all for joining us today.